How could I help?
So I started studying maybe a year ago. I knew that I wanted to take the LSAT. I knew all of that, but I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. Um, so when I started studying and taking like prep tests, I had a professor recommend Kaplan. So that's what I got. And it's not the best for me, I don't think. I think it's because it's not as interactive as I need it to be. So I just need to come up with the best way to use those resources to my advantage without it being a complete waste of my time.
Sure, sure. I hear what you're saying. So you've got access to the Kaplan course, you have the
Mm-hmm.
resources from them, but at the same time, you're concerned it's not the best for you.
Yeah.
I hear you. All right. So I want to take it one level deeper here because we could debate the pros and cons of different prep options. We could talk about simply how to use the actual exams.
Mm-hmm.
But underneath that, what's the bigger question behind that question?
Oh, I need help with reading comprehension mostly, because that's always been like my problem area, but taking the prep test, I've realized it's really not my best. So I just need a better way to approach it because that's like at the end of my Kaplan course. So I've been focusing more on logic, reasoning, and logic games. So I just need like the basics of the best way to go about reading comprehension so I at least have some idea of what I'm doing when I get there.
I hear you. All right. So what's your experience been like with the Kaplan LSAT reading comp stuff? Has it been working for you?
Um, with all of like the recorded videos and stuff, I lose my focus when I watch them because it's just like they're reading the passage and then they go over it. But that's like for 50 minutes. So I'm used to having a more and plus it's like the self-paced. So I don't ever interact with these teachers. I'm always watching them go over this stuff, but it's not interactive or anything. So I think that that's my biggest fault is that I am not, I can't bounce my ideas off of them. I think that that's my biggest issue.
I hear you. Okay. So you've got some resources. They're only on-demand videos. There's no interaction. There's no live component. And these videos don't sound like they're the most engaging.
Mm-mm.
What about the strategies themselves, though? Like the way that they mark things up. Have you tried that out? And how has that worked for you?
I've actually been doing a lot better with logic games just because their approach to diagramming it is a lot different than what I was used to. And it's definitely a good approach. I can't get into it. Like that's my biggest thing is that I know that it could help me if I could sit down for 50 minutes and watch it, but I'd rather just read the book because I can go at it at my own pace kind of thing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. All right. So it makes sense to me that the game's diagramming would work better for you because typically any diagramming approach will work better than what the average student just makes up on the spot. Because even though as much as I don't love the Kaplan methodologies overall, at least they are doing some things correct when it comes to diagramming games, to making diagrams with slots, to drawing conditionals. That's all okay. But the reading comp, from what I've seen, the whole road mapping thing is way overcomplicated. And that's not surprising me that it would take them 50 minutes to maybe even do one passage in that style. When you've got an average of 8:45 per passage, maybe some tougher ones will take 12, 13 minutes, but this detailed note-taking or paragraph summaries, it doesn't work in practice under timed conditions.
And because Kaplan was recommended to me but from a professor, I've just figured, he's been teaching for a long time. I'm assuming that he knows what he's talking about. And as soon as I joined all these groups, they were like, Kaplan isn't good. It's too complicated. There are better resources. And I'm like, well, that stinks because I already have it. And I thought I was, doing fine. But then I realized, I'm not. So
yeah, the professors mean well, but they need to catch up with the times. Kaplan was the big test prep thing decades ago, but the world's moved on. We've got more specialized boutique options. We've got online only options from people who specialize exclusively in the LSAT, and the bar has been raised, and Kaplan needs to catch up. These professors need to get with the program in 2020 what the new options are. Now, I've even been vocal about Kaplan myself in the LSAT Unplugged Facebook group, which I think I saw you join.
Mm-hmm.
And that group, I don't normally criticize other prep options because it's not the most distinguished thing to do and because some of them are actually pretty good. But the Kaplan one is the one I make the exception for because they've gotten bad results for my students for so long.
Right.
So if you want to use them for games, if you want to use the prep test they gave you, that's fine. Prep tests are prep tests, doesn't matter where you get them. So stick with the prep test at least. If the games is working for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
But with reading comp though, I would recommend a radically different approach. And I'll share just a taste of that with you now, as much as I can summarize in a short conversation, which is the people who do the best on reading comp mark very little or not even at all.
Right.
It takes time to write things down, takes time to read things. So I would suggest, have you tried a very minimal marking strategy?
That's what I'm most used to. My thing is, when I was practicing with like the Kaplan, they were like, you always want to remember what the main point is. And so I was doing stuff out of my book, and the whole time I was trying to focus on the main point, and that's just one of the questions afterwards. That's not all of the questions afterwards. So I found myself having to like panic because I was like, well, I don't really remember anything else. I was just looking for the main point. So I need to have a more cohesive approach to the questions after the passage. That's basically what I need because, I can read it fast, but I was only looking for the main point at one point, and then I was like, this isn't working. That's just not.
I hear that. Yeah, the main point is important, and I emphasize it, but as you said, it's also not the only thing.
Right.
You've got to know where the other things are so that you can go back and find them when you need to as you're solving the other questions. You'll get a couple of general questions, but there are a lot of detail-oriented ones, and you don't have to digest everything in that moment, but you've got to have at least a mental flag where okay, paragraph 2 is where they gave the details on this, so you can go back for that.
Yeah, I don't write things down when I read it. That's the one thing that tripped me up because I was like, that just takes way too long. The same way with like the logic games and the logical reasoning was, why would I take time to write this whole sentence out? Because they were like, write off to the side this. And I was like, why would I take 2 minutes to write that out when I can just remember it? But I was like, well, because every forum that I read before I joined like these Facebook groups and stuff was like, Kaplan's the best. Kaplan's the best. And I'm like, I don't think this is working for me. And I'm running out of time and I don't really want to bomb my first LSAT. So that's really what I need to focus on, is getting the best method for all of the categories.
And what's your target test date?
I'm taking it this Saturday, and then I also signed up for the August one as well.
Nice. Okay, so for the one this Saturday, just a few days away, I'm not going to recommend you radically change your approach or give you any specifics other than maybe we're speaking on Monday now, test is Saturday. You have time to do another 2 exams if you want. For flex practice, 3 sections, 2 exams, review them. That's all I'm going to suggest for you.
Okay.
But for August, you've got some more time. You've got over a month and a half there. So you've got some space to play experimenting with different styles in approaching reading comp. You could try out an approach that involves detailed paragraph summaries. You can try one that involves writing down nothing at all. You can write down one that involves just a couple of key words, maybe for each paragraph or maybe for the major viewpoints presented, and see what works best for you. Reading comp is more personal than other sections. So if you want to experiment, do a handful of sections one way, a handful another way, that's going to be your best indication, is to actually run those experiments on yourself.
Right. And I had like a mini freak out when I took my diagnostic, it was a full length LSAT, and I had little to no training or prep or anything, and I was like, this doesn't get me into anywhere. It was I think it was like a 135. I was like, this isn't good. This is not going to be good enough. And so that's when I joined all of the Facebook groups. I was like, there's got to be something I can do that isn't just sticking to this prep course that doesn't seem to be working. So hopefully I can raise that score a little bit.
Certainly. Well, you've got some time to do it. And if you're feeling like you want to use July, the one in a week, as a dry run to get a sense of the format, then you could do that. If you think you've got a shot at scoring where you want to be, then do that. But also you have the peace of mind knowing that August is there for you and July is not the end all be all. So let me ask you this, Caroline. Do you see the July LSAT on Saturday as being possible to reach your goal score on that one?
No, I don't. I'm shooting for at least 160 to be like completely happy with myself, because that could get me into like a couple of the schools that I would like to go to. But I hope that I could, maybe that I could, but ultimately I'm shooting for like just anything better than what I got the first time, because I think that I could have done much better than I had. And plus, I babysit all day, every day of the week. You know, I have summer classes. So I kind of looked at that as like, oh, well, we'll take more time. And then I found myself like making every excuse not to study because I would get so bored with the lessons that I would have on Kaplan. So I was just trying to like excuse myself from it. I was like, I'll do it later. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, this isn't good because it's this weekend and I don't think that I've prepped nearly enough to get an extremely high score. But at the same time, I kind of hope that I can pull something that's higher than I got on that first diagnostic test.
Nice, nice. And based on our conversation today and our conversation in class last week, I believe that you can. And normally, I would recommend against taking any LSAT administration if you didn't think you were going to be ready, if you didn't think you were going to reach your goal score. But I'm going to actually go against my own typical advice here for a couple of reasons. One of them is that the May, June, and July LSAT flex tests do not count towards the LSAT retake limits. So no big deal from a retake limit perspective for July. Secondly, I believe you would get a good confidence boost from seeing that your score on the July LSAT was significantly higher than on your initial diagnostic, which based on your studying up to this point, I have no doubt it will be. And that will take about 2 weeks to come back, but that'll still give you some time between the score release and the August 29th LSAT. So you can have that as extra motivation and a confidence booster for yourself going for that August LSAT. And then of course, with additional studying for August, you'll get an even further boost.
And if I weren't to get like a very high score, like I'm shooting for, you know, like to get into at least a couple of my schools, could I then take it in October and still have enough time to apply?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be totally fine.
Okay. And because I've been talking to, because I didn't realize how, you know, everyone's kind of at a different place until I joined all these groups of people, because I kind of thought I was alone in this. I was like, I'm going to be the only one that gets a bad score on this. And then I saw all these people and they were like, this is what I did to go from here to here to here. And I didn't really realize just how, you know, everyone has a hard time with this test. And that was kind of like a soothing kind of thing, because I was like, okay, I'm not the only one having a horrible time with this, because it's not easy, but I thought it was easier for everyone else because, you know, but with my major at my school being so small, you know, there's a handful of people and a lot of them aren't even taking it this year. So I was nervous that I was the only one that felt that way. And then like I got on your Zoom the other day and I was like, okay, it's okay. Everyone has a hard time with this. So I think the confidence boost is really what I could use right now.
Exactly. And you'll get it from July's LSAT, and you'll also get it from this community that you've joined to see that you're not going through it alone. Even if you're one of a few at your school doing this, out there in the wider world of the internet and Zoom calls and Facebook groups, you can see that there are thousands of other people going through this exact same process, and it's hard. And there are some forums where people only post when they're doing well, but at least in my Facebook group on LSAT Unplugged, we post about the hardships as well. And I call those out because it is difficult. It's hard when you feel like you're the only one going through it, but in reality, most people do struggle.
Yeah. And because I talked to one of my fellow students at school, and she was like, I scored a 170 on my first try. And I was like, how is that? How did you do that? How is that possible? And she wouldn't like share with me how she got it. So I was like, well, she was literally the only one from my school that took it that time. So I was like, well, I really hope I can get a 170, because this is really throwing me for a loop, because I thought going into it that it was just going to be like easy, going straight along, and now I'm just like, this is hard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most people are not natural born geniuses who do well on this the first time. Most people, myself included, struggle with it for several months or even longer. And those people tend not to brag about it, especially on internet forums where people are anonymous and using fake names and stuff like that. But at least in my Facebook group, people are using real names and they're posting real stories. And we maintain a positive can-do attitude, not to brag and put others down or try to make anybody feel lesser than, but really that it's hard to struggle. You can ultimately succeed. We celebrate the success stories, but we also don't sugarcoat the fact that this is a difficult process. So I feel like you've gotten that sense of that from our Zoom call and from the Facebook group. And I encourage you to stay engaged, keep coming to class, keep posting, learn from others, and continue moving forward.
Yeah, that was like what I needed, because it kind of gave me some perspective. There was a lot about the LSAT that I didn't know. People that I've gotten to meet from them has been really, really helpful. So I'm really glad that I did that.
Of course, Caroline. Well, I'm glad to help. Before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
Just, it's comforting to know that it is hard for even someone who knows a lot like you do, because like you said, it was hard for you too. I think that I just needed that reassurance that I'll be fine. It'll be okay in the end. So yeah, that's what I'm taking away, is just the reassurance that it'll be all right.
Excellent. Well, glad to meet with you. Glad we connected. Please keep in touch and let me know if you need anything moving forward.
I will. Thank you so much.
Of course. All the best on Saturday.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.